Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am happy to be here with you today on a very upsetting subject, because this is news. We first heard about it on Sunday as it may be something happening. On Monday, it actually did happen. That's right. On July 12th, we found out that there is a fact. It is affecting this nation, and we must denounce this in the strongest terms possible. We must stop this at its root and prevent this from poisoning the United States and democracy around the world. We're going to go into details on exactly what we're talking about and how bad this is in just a second. But first, we want to take a moment to calm down and mention that if this is the first time that you're seeing the program, we want to welcome you and we thank you for joining us. We do long-form political commentary on this channel. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We go to Facebook, to Twitter, to YouTube, to DLive, essentially all of the social media that the internet overlords will allow, to be able to reach out to you from wherever you are in the world and to help you express your First Amendment right, your free speech right. It's not just an American right, it's a right that is inalienable for everyone at birth. So we ask you to join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to share your tweets, your chats, and yes, even your phone calls to tell us what you think about what's going on the issues facing the entire world and affecting all of us. We hope to see you Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's focus on what has us upset. And I mean, I'm very upset because right now it is 12:27 a.m. on July 13th. It's early in the morning and we could not go to sleep because this is aggravating. This is something that needs to be denounced in the strongest terms, and it isn't. The news media is not giving this the attention it should, and they are not reacting in a way that is in the benefit of the American people. And therefore, it's not in the benefit of all of the people in the world that look to America as a shining beacon of democracy. This is an insult to the people in Hong Kong, those who have been taken by the Chinese Communist government and put into holes hidden away from the world, never to be seen again. This is an insult to those who are fighting in North Korea, in Iran, around the world, who are seeking democracy. And we need to denounce this horrible action that is going on right now because it is symptomatic of a problem. Let me get into the details here. On Sunday, we had first heard that the Texas Democrats were planning to, the Texas Democratic state lawmakers were looking to evade an election requirement to change election laws. That the Democrats in Texas were going to run away like cowards, and they were going to hide themselves from the public. They were going to hide themselves from their responsibility to voters and to the citizens of Texas. And then on Monday, we found out it actually happened. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here it is on Twitter. We can see that 11 hours ago at this time, there was breaking news from the Texas Tribune that the Texas House Democrats planned to flee their state so that they could block a voting registration bill that was coming up in the legislature. This was the second time this bill was to be presented to the legislature to be voted on, and the Democrats had previously run away before, violating Texas state law because they don't want to have this bill go through. That's a problem. And we found out, so that was their plan. We knew that was the plan of the Democrats, and we heard this as early as Sunday. And then we got to hear from NBC News that Texas Democrats did, in fact, flee their own state in an effort to block a Republican-backed voting restriction bill. Oh, an election bill. It's not necessarily voting restrictions. But we found out on July 12th at 12:42 p.m., and it was updated at 10 p.m. At 10 p.m., it went from this was their plan to the fact that they did run from Texas. 51 members of the Texas House Legislature. It even went around the world because even in the BBC, they announced just a few minutes ago, Texas Democrats fled their state to block a Republican voting law, because that's what it is. It is a voting law, not a voting restriction. It is a voting law. And it was told that the move will temporarily paralyze the state's House of Representatives, which requires at least a 2/3 vote of lawmakers to be present for the vote. This is coming from the BBC. This is from England, one of our allies. They are paying attention to what's going on with democracy in the United States because this is important. Now, I want you to understand, this is the second time in 6 weeks that the Texas Democrats have decided to walk out. And it's a delaying tactic. It's not a winning strategy. It's not a plan other than to delay, to try and prevent this from going through until there's another election, and they hope that the Texas Democrats would hope that they could get a majority. They are just being petulant children. Let me say that again. They are being petulant children because they are not getting their way. And we were very clear about that when we spoke about it on Twitter. What we had said at 10 p.m. on July 12th, we said, now it's a fact. Texas Democrats revealed their loyalty to the Biden-Harris policy. They ran away from their responsibility and accountability. It mirrors Kamala and Biden, Kamala on the border, and Joe and Afghanistan. Tales tucked and reported by left-leaning media. Voters must be proud. It's undeniable. We went on to say, is there any politician that will call their action out for what it is or has fear of offending the public with the truth taken hold nationally? Can anyone say that what we see in Texas and in Afghanistan running away with the tail between their legs is not endemic across the country? Is Governor Cuomo any different as he hides from 16,000 nursing home deaths? Governor Newsom, Governor Whitmer, each of them with thousands of nursing home deaths. And we're asking this of New York State Assembly. We're asking this of politicians who are elected, the Democrats that are in charge. Let's be clear. We denounce this act. It is horrendous. It is a lack of responsibility. It is a slap in the face of accountability. It is not the democratic system. It is not a proper response. It does not resolve the situation. Democrats may not like the legal and properly executed change of laws because it doesn't benefit them. I understand that. They want to see laws that they like that will benefit them in elections. But when they don't get it, that doesn't mean run away. It doesn't mean ignore the situation. It doesn't mean that you try and make lies as they did on Sunday, saying that the Republicans in Texas were delaying people for 17 hours. That's not what happened. That's not the truth. What actually happened is Democrats had people, they made them wait themselves. Democrats brought in their own supporters, told them to show up at 8 a.m. and made them wait until 9:30 because Democrats were too busy posturing on the floor of the Democratic Texas state legislature. They were demagoguing. They were out there pontificating and wasting time and made their people wait 17 hours so they could get a positive headline that says, oh, the Republicans made them wait. No, they didn't. It was the Democrats speaking that did it. And we reported that on Sunday, July 11th, when the news came out. And here they are, after doing all of their politicking, their little showboating and their tantrum, they decided to continue their tantrum by running away. That's not accountable. That's not the American system. That's not democracy. And you know what? We're fed up with this. Someone needs to say this and say this very loudly and very clearly. And we are fed up with Democrats who are throwing their little hissy fits every time they don't get something the way they want it to. And they keep changing the rules so that they can benefit and no one else will. And if you think we're wrong about that, this is from C-SPAN. C-SPAN. So there is no kind of mean to this. This is C-SPAN. from January 6th of 2005. This is Bernie Sanders, one of the most left-leaning people in the entire United States government. And this is what he had to say on January 6th.
I think George W. Bush won Ohio, but I agree with millions of American citizens that no American should have to wait 4 hours to cast a vote. I agree with tens of millions of Americans who are very worried that when they cast the ballot on an electronic voting machine, that there is no paper trail to record that vote in the event of a recount. What today is about is to demand that the federal government begin to move forward to guarantee that every voter in America feels secure and confident that all of the votes cast in this country are counted accurately and that all of our voters are treated with respect and dignity. That is what democracy is about, and that is what we are fighting for.
Gee, did you catch that? Did you catch what he said? That every vote is counted. That every vote is counted and that everyone is treated with dignity. That's what he wanted to be on the floor. That's what Democrats were speaking about. And by the way, it wasn't just Bernie Sanders that was saying that day. Here's the list of all these Democrats and all these representatives, including Nancy Pelosi, who would become Speaker of the House now. She's also in there, speaking about every vote must be counted for. Every vote is important. This is the Democratic Party that's saying that votes matter. But you know what? It's also the Democratic Party that says we don't need to count those votes. That counting the votes, making sure that every vote counts somewhere between January of 2006 and April of 2021, suddenly it stopped mattering. The votes didn't matter. What happened? They got their candidate in, and it doesn't matter. You don't need to feel like your vote matters. There's no need for accountability. You don't have to be assured of the fact that your vote matters. And Democrats are blocking. They sued to block the audit of a 2020 Arizona election to give voters that confidence that their vote was duly recorded and counted, just like Bernie Sanders said was the thing that was important in 2006. Regardless of who won, that voters had confidence in the system. But in 2021, the Arizona Democratic Party and the sole Democrat on the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors filed a lawsuit Thursday seeking to block the Arizona Senate's ballot recount and audit of the county's 2020 election. Here you go. This was the Republicans went through the system. They properly went through the channels and said, let's recount, let us give the American people, the voters, the confidence that their vote was recorded. It doesn't matter who won. They want you to be confident in what the result was. But Democrats don't like that. It was good for them in 2006. It's horrible in 2021 because they don't want anyone questioning what they do. Here we go in 2016. Here's the House doing a sit-in. Do you remember that? Because the news media is counting on the fact that you won't remember this. They're counting on the fact that you won't remember who was there and what they were doing. In June 22nd of 2016, again from C-SPAN, we saw that the Democratic members of the House of Representatives sat in the floor and shut down Congress because they didn't get what they wanted in terms of gun control legislation. They demanded that the United States had to have more gun control. By the way, they have to forget that it was in 2012 that we were speaking about this. That was just before we saw that New York State and many states decided to take on red flag laws. The New York State created the New York SAFE Act and gun legislation across the country that was solely meant to stop gun violence. That was the promise we were given. It didn't work. And it didn't work because we know that just a couple of years later, here were the Democrats saying we need more gun control. You think that wasn't enough? How about the fact that on January 16th of 2013, President Obama put through 23 executive orders on gun control? This is exactly what the Democrats were asking for. He did what they said, and it didn't work. But they demanded, and this was, again, this is in January of 2013, after they passed the SAFE Act, after they passed many states the red flag laws, and just 3 years later, Democrats were saying, we need gun control legislation. You got gun control. You got exactly what you asked for, but they wanted more. It wasn't what they said it was. They didn't get everything they wanted. In fact, in January of 2016, as we recorded on Facebook, it was President Obama who decided that he wanted to tell a rape victim survivor that she couldn't have a gun, that having a firearm to protect herself from rape was a danger to herself. You don't believe me? Here is the article written by Town Hall on January 8th of 2016. And here are the words from President Obama himself after hearing this woman say that she is being victimized by the gun control laws in 2013, in 2016 by Democrats, that they were making her life endangered. And President Obama says, in part, quote, there are always questions as to whether or not having a firearm in the home protects you from that kind of violence. And I'm not sure we can resolve that. People argue it both sides. What is true is that you have to be pretty well trained in order to fire a weapon against somebody who is assaulting you and catches you by surprise. And what is also true is there's always the possibility that the firearm in the home leads to a tragic accident. We can debate that round or flat. Here's the thing. The fact is, the numbers show us that the number of accidents in the nation are very, very low. It's a minor number. It's almost insignificant. But what we do know is the violence from gangs is enormous. We know that domestic violence is enormous. We know that home invasions and gun violence of that nature is high. And you're telling a woman, no, you can't have a firearm because you'll kill yourself. That's actually very unlikely. Highly unlikely. We're talking about hundreds out of millions of people in the nation every year that possibly have that accident. It is incredibly low and unlikely. But he would rather have this woman get raped again than be able to defend herself because she didn't like the answer she got. That's what the Democrats are telling us. And I want you to remember that in 2019, Democrats did the same thing. So not only were they out on, and I want to be very clear, not only in 2005 were Democrats running around saying we need to be able to have accountability in our votes. It isn't enough that in 2016 they were sitting down for gun control that they already got, that they were already getting in every single state and they had already passed executive orders on. No. In 2019, Michigan Democrats walked out on a right-to-work debate to protest the closure of the Capitol demonstrations. They didn't like the answer they were getting. Democrats didn't get what they wanted to hear. And they were upset. They were pissed off. And they decided to take it out. Not because they went through the system and challenged it in the courts, not because they won elections and they were able to pass the laws that they wanted to do. No, when everything went wrong for them, they decided to be petulant little children throwing a tantrum, running away, and denying the responsibility they have to uphold the rights and the laws of their state and to represent their people and actually sit and take the vote, even when it means they are going to lose. And we talked about this. Remember, it was in July 8th of 2020, a year ago, that the police identified an 8-year-old girl who was killed after shots being fired into her car at a burned Wendy's. That's right, because it was the Atlanta BLM Antifa autonomous zone in Atlanta. Parents were trying to drive around. They didn't realize that Antifa was trying to create an autonomous zone in Atlanta, and those Antifa fanatics shot the car, and killed an 8-year-old child. And you know what? Representative Jerry Nadler, 11 days later, said Oh, Antifa doesn't exist. There is no such thing as Antifa, even though Portland had been going through 60 days. Let me say that again, 60 days of rioting. That there was a autonomous zone being created in Portland, just like there was in Atlanta. And there were riots nonstop from the BLM and Antifa movements. And Jerry Nadler looked at the American people and said, no, it's not true. How many times do we have to hear Democrats lie to our faces, tell us the things that we are seeing are not true, like on CNN and MSNBC, as we watch an arson fire going on in the background, and we're told, well, you know what, that's mostly peaceful. We're told after Democrats pass through executive orders and laws across the country to take away our Second Amendment rights. And then they say, well, no, we need more. And if you don't do it, we're going to protest. We're going to be petulant children. Oh, you're not going to pass the laws that we want in Michigan and in Texas. We're going to run away. And why am I not surprised by this? Because isn't that exactly the same thing that we see in Afghanistan right now? Under Joe Biden's direction in the Middle East, the U.S. Army abandoned the Bagram Air Base in the middle of the night, just turned off the lights and ran away. Just like Joe Biden would want them to, just like the Democrats have done in Michigan, and exactly like they're doing in Texas. They ran away, tails between their legs, running away like scared little children, giving a tantrum. And now we see them doing this here in the United States as well. That's cowardly. That isn't brave. It isn't what they're elected for. This isn't them being accountable. You don't have to like the laws. They can vote against these laws. They will be on record for voting against laws they disagree with. And voters will be able to decide for themselves. Just like voters are deciding for themselves for the 22 cities that decided to defund the police and watch crime skyrocket, watch murders and homicides and gun violence skyrocket because there aren't enough police officers. That's what we should be seeing, and that's what we should be talking about. But instead, what we're talking about is them running away. And you know what we get to hear from the Democratic Party? When we hear from the leadership of the Democratic Party, we get to hear Kamala Harris take this stance. And I want you to hear this clearly.
And so many others. So we will talk about many issues. But I do want to first start by making a statement about the legislators in Texas who are showing extraordinary courage and commitment. I met with them when many of them traveled to Washington, D.C. We sat down and had an extensive conversation in the Roosevelt Room in the White House. And I applaud them standing for the rights of all Americans and all Texans to express their voice through their vote, unencumbered. I will say that they are leaders who are marching in the path that so many others before did when they fought and many died for our right to vote. And I'll say this later in my comments, but I do believe that fighting for the right to vote is as American as apple pie. It is so fundamental to fighting for the principles of our democracy. So I applaud them, and it is with that spirit as well that we meet today. Over the past many weeks.
Can you imagine that she just said that? This is the same woman that just 3 days ago said that if you are in rural America, you're too stupid to be able to get a photocopy. This is the woman who is terrified of going to the southern border of the United States to find out what's going on, how illegal immigration is affecting American citizens, and that she avoided that, and she lied to the American people saying that the situation is getting better as we have 40,000 children that were abused being sent by themselves into the desert after a 1,000-mile march. We know that she went and avoided the border where 600,000 illegal aliens came in. She went and met with 6 kids instead of the 1,600 that were sitting just in a fort right next to El Paso that she wouldn't go to speak to find out what was going on. because she didn't want to honestly give an answer, and she wouldn't let the press see the conditions that are actually happening there, the overcrowding, the COVID, the problem as it truly exists. And here she is now saying that this move by Texas Democrats to run away, that's somehow fighting for voting rights. I'm sorry, I don't remember one time that Martin Luther King decided to run away from an event, from a protest, and somehow that was considered to be some kind of positive. He never did that. He dealt with the issue in front of him, even when he got arrested, even when he didn't get the result that he wanted immediately. He went there and faced the situation as it was. When Republicans do that, we get told, if we see Republicans in January, they were out there and they did exactly what Bernie Sanders was doing. They did exactly what Democrats have done in 2000 and many other times, where they said, we didn't agree with the vote. We're going to challenge that. And we were told that, we heard across the entire news media, well, that is insurrectionist. That's against the American system, doing exactly what Democrats have already done. And now we see that Democrats are being lauded by Kamala Harris, saying, oh, running away is an honorable thing. No, it's not. You know what's happening? When we see running away, when the American government is running away, the U.S. military is running away from Bagram Airport, the Taliban takes over 85% of that nation. We see that they have now been given tanks and weapons and food to be able to fight. We see that Iran is growing in its influence, the leading sponsor of global terror in the world, and they are being empowered by the Biden administration running away with its tail between its legs. We're watching Democrats that are failing their people because they're not willing to stand up and take the vote. Even if you're going to lose, stand there and vote your conviction, vote for what the people in your district want. And if you lose, stand up and show people, this is where I stood. This is what I believed in. This is why you elected me. And by the way, we're paying attention to the consequences of this. Because if this doesn't work out, you're going to remember that vote. Just like we remember every single one of the cities, the 22 cities in the United States, like Minneapolis, like Portland, like Seattle, like Austin, and many others that reduced their San Francisco, that reduced their police force, and the result has been skyrocketing crime. Just like in Rochester, where Mayor Lovey has been voted out. That's right, because of the crime that she allowed to happen by reducing the number of police officers and not protecting the people. Accountability is to stand there tall and say, this is what I believe in, this is why you voted me in, and let's look at the consequences of the vote, whether I won or whether I lost. We need more people in the news media to say that. We need more politicians to stand up and say that and be accountable, and not to run around with this, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of mental disorder. Democrats think that running away is standing up for something. Are you crazy? They think that changing the rules for everyone to suit them is somehow brave and bold and useful. It is an abuse of the democratic system. It is an abuse of the American people, and we call them out, we denounce that, and we think it's wrong. Now, if you think we're wrong, we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Please tell us what you think about this. We look forward to hearing your comments and your words, and we hope that you're going to be well.